What's up? Today I'm going to tell you how exactly I got one of my students from very inconsistent, couple $1,000s a day to actually keeping that consistently and even scaling further than that. All right. I'm going to walk you through the entire process that we did so that you at home can do the exact same thing. So where was he at before he joined my mentorship? Basically, he was hitting a couple of really good days before he even joined. However, the problem was he was only on TikTok ads. And as you know, probably from running it yourself or just hearing others, TikTok ads are very inconsistent, right? So that's the biggest problem. Inconsistency is like the thing which most dropshippers struggle with once they start making money. And he had no creative system, he had no retargeting, nothing of that kind, right? So let's actually break down what I did to actually help him out to make everything consistent. And so actually now his store does a couple $1,000s a day consistently, right? And more than before. All right, problem. He tried to fix something which was impossible to fix. In my opinion, you have no shot at actually running the same store on TikTok ads for over 3 months consistently. Impossible, right? Just real quickly, if you like the content, I'm currently doing 2 free group calls a week on my Discord, so it's completely free. Just join, first link in the description. Don't want to waste your time. I hope to see you in there next time. TikTok ads are inconsistent. That's how they are. You can't make them, if you're only on TikTok, you can't be consistent with your store because a little fluctuation, like 30%, is oftentimes for a lot of brands the difference between extremely profitable and extremely unprofitable. And so one thing which you need to understand is you can't fix the unfixable, right? You can't make TikTok as consistent. You have so many other options that you have to focus on to make your store more consistent than to actually focus on TikTok ads only. And so he was depending on his TikTok ROAS, and obviously on some days he was very profitable, everything was looking good, and then let's say it was a Monday or a Tuesday, which is typically a worse day for ecom, was very, very, very low, very bad. All right. So how do we actually do? It's like, it doesn't matter how many creatives you test, because as you know, I mean, TikTok eats creatives for breakfast. I mean, TikTok completely burns creatives in like 1 to 2 days. Even when I serve scaled, sometimes like what used to happen to me is like my creatives burn out in the middle of the day. So it's like, and they never used to work again. So creatives are, if you're at a really high scale, you're gonna have to test like 20 creatives every single day. And it's like, what's the point of doing that if you have so many better, easier options to make everything consistent? And so let's actually break down what we did. The very first thing is we implemented Facebook and Google ads into his store. So we just looked at all the creatives from what he tested, and he was already like a really, really high performer when it comes to creative testing because he was just used to this TikTok quickly burning creative fatigue problem, right? So what we did is actually we looked at all of them, looked at which one has gotten the most amount of spend and the best ROAS overall over all the duplicated ad groups, right? Over every time he serve scaled, and then he basically took all those creatives and made a Facebook ABO, right? So made a Facebook ad account, completely new, everything from scratch, and only put the best ones in there, right? And his problem used to be before that he was only on TikTok, it was depending on his TikTok ROAS. And one thing, if you haven't heard this already, if you don't know this already, if your creatives, right, if they work on TikTok ads, there's a very high chance that they're also going to work on Facebook ads. You just got to figure out how and who to target. In his case, we did completely broad targeting, and the results were actually insane. So once we started running the Facebook ads, he immediately realized basically all the ad groups that he started and he launched were profitable, right? They got a lot of sales. They got like very, very low cost per clicks. And if you know, like if you've ever had a winner on Facebook, you know, if you find 1 winning ad on Facebook, you're going to scale really high. If you find like 8 winning ads on Facebook, you're going to scale extremely high. And that's kind of how his situation immediately started looking like. Now, one more thing, which is super interesting, is sometimes creatives burn out on Facebook because the awareness stage is too aware, right? There's like not a lot of low-hanging fruits that ad can actually convert. The ad can't scale to cold audiences. But for his case, that wasn't at all the case, because on TikTok his creatives used to just burn out just because it was scaling that hard, not because of the awareness stages. But once I actually started breaking down his ads, we identified that he was kind of speaking to solution aware or problem aware people, which is like at itself are pretty big audiences, right? And so we just took those creatives over to Facebook, and they're actually still performing, right? This was like a week ago, and they're still going very well. He's scaling super high right now on Facebook specifically. And so when it comes to TikTok, right, obviously there's a lot of things that we did on TikTok, but that's still one of his main traffic sources to this day. And so what we did basically is like he basically tested his ads in a bunch of different countries, right? So he started in a European country. That was his, like, when he found his winner, but he just tested the same thing in a bunch of different European countries. And so he kind of did a horizontal scale, which is a very good way of just scaling on TikTok ads, just like scaling at multiple markets at the same time. Because again, chances are really high if it works in one market that it's going to work in all the others as well, right? And so this is what we did. Now, Google Ads, what we implemented is a brand search campaign. Very simple. Basically, it's a campaign which kind of never really starts spending unless you have enough awareness on your keywords. And in his case, the only keyword that we had to put in there was his brand name, because once he did that, like, he immediately had all this spend on Facebook, all this spend on TikTok. So we got all the awareness that just wasn't being worked. It just didn't work with any of that stuff. And so if he had a competitor, we don't know that, but if one of his competitors actually had his brand name as a keyword, then that competitor would have gotten all the customers that basically clicked on his website from his ad, then clicked off and Googled him up, right? And so that's how he basically got all his customers back with page links. So it's better than SEO, because with Google Ads, with the brand search campaign, you can immediately send them to the specific product page, not only the whole page. And that's exactly what we did, right? So that campaign was immediately profitable, right? It started spending like crazy immediately, just because we had all this awareness from his keywords. And so basically what happened then is, like, he was already much more consistent, right? So we kind of did something with TikTok ads also, which was, basically making the variations. I'm going to talk about the creative system in a second, but I'm actually going to, before that, kind of take a minute to talk about retargeting, right? So retargeting is basically a form of, like, getting people that just weren't ready to buy right the first time that they kind of interacted with your brand, but they showed some interest, and so you kind of show them specific ads, specific emails, whatever it is, to get them to actually buy, or to even get customers to buy again. That's retargeting. That's actually what we're implementing right now. So we're also kind of giving you, I'm also giving you a picture of the future, how his store is going to be looking like, because right now we're working on actually split testing his emails, because as you know, email marketing is not only something which is set up once, but it's actually a thing you can split test so much within them. And so it's like breaking down every single metric of the open rate, of the click-through rate, and then actually how many orders, what was the conversion rate of those emails, right? So very first thing obviously is going to be abandoned checkout flows. That's the easiest thing set up. Just send them 3 emails, a bunch of SMSs as well. Also a very good form of retargeting, basically. But then the whole campaign structure that we're going to run on Klaviyo, which is essentially going to be like an every day or every other day, we're going to send them out emails specifically for them, right? So we're going to have like different types of emails. We're just going to monitor and track for every single email that we send out. We're going to change up a little bit, but we're actually getting them to actually do that. And that, what's super cool about that is that you can just, like, if you send them so many emails, first of all, like, you're getting a lot of customers again and again and again, but also you're just gonna find a lot of data that you can then all put into one like sheet where you track everything, right? So what I would recommend for everyone watching this video right now to do is, you have a sheet, right, an Excel sheet or whatever, that you can just track every single winning variable of your store in there, right? So every time you find a winning ad, winning hook, a winning headline or primary text, a winning email header or like subject, right? Whatever you find or identify, write it in there. And the cool thing is, you're not only going to be able to have a higher hit rate on your current store, but even if you move on, you're going to have this huge database of basically variables that you can just plug and play into your next couple stores and improve your hit rates like crazy, right? So if you're watching this video, do that right now. And retargeting is one of the most important things. Basically, what we did with Google Ads is also a form of retargeting, but what we're actually also implementing right now is a competitor search campaign, right? So it's the same setup as the brand search campaign. It's essentially just a normal Google search campaign, but instead of the one brand name keyword, we're having 10 different keywords of competitors of them, right? So what he actually did is he made the campaign higher budget than the brand search campaign, and we're just, right now it's running, so we're going to evaluate the data. We're just going to look at, okay, how profitable is it, which keyword, we're going to break them down. And then the next step, which I'm usually doing on my stores, is once I have some key keywords of competitors that are profitable for me, what I'm just doing is I'm splitting them up into new campaigns each and then writing specific text around them, right? So I can do, let's say your brand A, and then your keyword is brand B, right? So you could say, once you actually split them up in the headlines of, like, if someone Googles brand B but you want their traffic, you can actually say why brand A is better than brand B, right? Obviously, I have to be a little bit careful not to get into legal issues due to that, but these types of things, especially when you start splitting them up, the competitor search campaign, that's when it actually starts to become super interesting. Now, when it comes to Google Ads, future-wise, performance max, shopping, all these things are going to implement, but just in form of retargeting, like SMS is also very important, right? So if you're watching this video right now and kind of asking yourself, what's the next step after your kind of consistent front end, right? So you're making your profits, everything looking good, then definitely implement SMS and upsells, right? So we're kind of also right now split testing upsells, and the goal should always definitely be to have like a funnel, not only one upsell that you have, but actually like upsell, downsell, upsell, downsell, upsell, downsell. For every single upsell that they decline or take, they get another one, and if they don't take that, they get a downsell. And it's like a huge tree, basically a huge kind of net of upsells and downsells until they take something. And that is the easiest way to just massively increase the average order value. Now, as you know, there are two types of different upsells that you can have, basically. First one being a normal upsell, which is like usually the same product or just cheaper than that. But what a lot of people don't talk about in ecom, and I think that's personally super powerful, because every time I've implemented that into one of my stores, even if it had a low take rate, it made me a lot of money, which is actually making a super expensive upsell, right? So let's say your AOV is like $50, your upsell is 300. This works exceptionally well if you have like some type of electronic, some type of really problem-solving product that you can make a pro version or a pro bundle of, and then what you do is like you make the upsell 5 or 6 times as expensive, and you offer that immediately after they purchased, even if it only has like a 3 or 5% take rate. And that's super solid, because imagine how much that adds up to the AOV, right? And so this is the easiest way to really do that. Now, what we're also working on, right, when it comes to backend, is not the cost of goods, because I don't believe in getting the cheapest cost of goods. I believe it's much more powerful. That I've proven that in every single one of my very recent stores that I've done that in. Basically, it is the improvement of the customer experience, right? So first of all, custom packaging. But besides that, obviously negotiating faster shipping times and higher product quality. Even if you have to pay more for every single order, it's 100% worth it. Because first of all, you're going to get word of mouth working for you, and word of mouth either works for you or works against you. There's no in between. Okay, so definitely double down on word of mouth and actually understand how powerful it is. This is like the first step of actually transitioning pump and dump stores into brands. But you need to understand that, like, if your customer experience is bad, then word of mouth is working massively against you. And if it's working negatively, if it's working against you, I've personally seen that it's much harder to get out of that, right? It's much harder to not only get out of that, but it's actually much stronger like that too. Whereas if word of mouth is working for your brand, for your business, then it's very slow, very steady, but it's exponential. And so you're going to recognize the good part later on, like once you actually are at a high level, high scale, and actually have been running for a couple of months. So that's when you're going to realize why it's actually so strong. Now, and it comes to the third topic that we did, and that is the creative system. And one thing, when he tested his product, even though it worked for him, I would not 100% sure recommend everyone doing that. But what he did basically is he kind of ripped ads off in like an ad spy tool, and just took it over to another platform, to another market, whatever. So it worked for him. But when he actually joined the mentorship, what I did is like I kind of went back to step 0 with him, and actually broke down all of his ads, taught him how to do the skills, so I taught him how creatives are supposed to look like and everything. And so you need to understand one thing, right? A creative system is always the biggest lever in every e-com brand. Like the most important part of everything, if I could pick one word, right, out of this entire video that you have to understand and remember, it's your creatives. Right? Because every single time, the biggest lever in your business is going to be the creatives, right? And so what do we do? Well, basically, I started actually with them with him actually break down his ads into the hook rates, into the hold rates, and everything in between. We started identifying winning variables. And then what we did is just we made a bunch of variations and a bunch of new creative tests with a system behind it. So what he used to do is he used to just, take new clips, take whatever, and then just run them up just like he did it before. And if it didn't work, obviously he didn't know what worked and just stopped. But one thing which we're doing right now is iterative media buying, right? So we're tracking every metric possible, and then we're taking the same concept and making them profitable by iterating them again and again and again. So let's say you have a concept which kind of works, but it's not profitable yet, but you're getting good buying intent, decent conversion rates or add to cart rates, and like a decent CPC or click-through rate. What you can do is just check, okay, for example, the hook is good, after that, it's bad, right? So you take the hook and you make a bunch of creative tests with that hook. So a bunch of creatives, a next test with only that hook, and you go deeper and deeper and deeper in what worked a little bit until you find a variation of that concept, right? After testing millions, not millions, but like hundreds of that concept, that is really profitable. And all you need to do is then scale that up to the moon, right? And so I want you guys, if you're watching this video, never to be satisfied with the performance of an ad, right? Because it can always be better. Never be satisfied, never relax, because creatives die really fast, especially if you're on TikTok ads. And you need to understand that your competition is going to realistically rip your stuff. And there's still brands out there, medium-sized brands, whose entire spend runs on basically one creative, right? And imagine this. Let's say you're that creative. If you're watching this video and you have a winner right now, but it's all depending on one creative. Like imagine this, that creative burns out. All your income is gone. What do? Right? You lose your momentum, you lose everything. And so that's like the worst situation that can happen. So if the most of your spend actually runs on one creative right now, then forget the scaling strategy. You need to test more creatives right now, right? Creative testing, and I'm going to repeat that because I think this is the most powerful thing you're going to learn in this video, is creative testing, right? And you need to have a system behind it. So every single time you test creatives, you need to have like a basically the 80-20 rule, which I like, is like 80% you focus on already proven concepts, proven hooks, whatever, and only 20% of that budget and time that when it comes to creative testing goes to new stuff, right? And so within that 80%, what you do is like you have a system of, okay, I'm doing, for example, 50% of that 80%, I'm actually going to do with the same hook. Obviously, this is very individual, and depending on your hook rates, your hold rates, right? Everyone has like a very different kind of problem in his business. So let's say you have like extremely good hook rates, right? Over 60%. What we can do then is like, okay, how do I get, first of all, more people to watch not only the hook, but all the way, the ad all the way through the end? And then second of all, how do I increase the conversion rate of each ad, right? So you might start split testing the store, which we're also doing with my student. Basically, what we're doing is just kind of like implementing a split test of two different offers, which are very similar to each other, just because his current offer is converting so well. His revenue per visitor is already working super well. So there's no point in testing two different offer structures. But what we're doing is actually like implementing some type of free gift structure, some type of stronger guarantee. Kind of, you can split test whatever you want on your store. And so that's what we're looking. But specifically on your ad, on your creatives, there's also a conversion rate on them, right? And so some ads will give you very cheap traffic, but very bad conversion rates. So it's also important to have a little custom column on your ad manager, which is conversion rate, because again, every single ad is converting differently. And so what you can do if your ad is getting really cheap traffic and no conversion rate at all, basically what I can do is basically just going ahead and taking the same concept, taking the variation, taking the entire creative, and just positioning yourself more as the brand that's actually selling. So do a little bit of a couple tweaks in the visual hook or in the text hook, or a stronger call to action, for example. Essentially, the goal is you position yourself more as the brand that's actually selling it. And then what's going to happen is you're going to get a lot of higher quality traffic to the store. Of course, CPCs might go up a little bit, but if your conversion rate doubles or triples, it makes up for it. And essentially, all of these are as important. So it's not enough to just have low CPCs. The ads also need to convert super well. And so these are kind of things that we did. And now for you, very quickly, if you're right now watching this video and you kind of don't know how to find your first winner, right? I would just recommend you really go back to the basics. You'll learn the basics of product research. You'll learn the basics of actually making good ad creatives, of split testing your offers and how good offers even look like, and media buying. I have videos about all of these on my channel. So take the time, watch them, but then actually take action, because advice, everything you've learned in this video is worth nothing if you don't actually execute it. And so with that being said, guys, I want to say thank you for giving me your most important assets, which are your time and your attention, and I wish you a beautiful day.